Awesome. Thanks so much, Sam. Hello, everyone. Really good to be back with you on day 4 of 4 of this little series. That's been a real pleasure to be with you doing. I will say more a little bit more right at the end, but want to share right here as well, which is that if you've been enjoying this week, getting into embodied practice together, getting into movement and breath work, and really cultivating our skills and capacities in the body, that we are opening up our online studio. We think of studio as that space where we get into practice, and especially getting into practice together. We can practice solo, but I think as clearly, all of you are in here together for the IJS sits, there's really a lot of value in doing this in community. So we are opening up the studio in a couple of weeks, starting with Monday and Thursdays at 11, and we have a free intro that is 1 week from today at 11 a.m. Eastern. And so a number of you all have already signed up, which is amazing. So if you haven't, please go to that link when you have a chance and sign up. So with that, yeah, let's get into our practice. So this week we have been playing with this metaphor of Adam Eitz Hasadeh, of the human being like a tree of the field. And exploring these ways in which we as humans can kind of tap into, pun half intended, can tap into that tree-like quality that we can emulate through our actions. Also invite us in general to think about our bodies as Torah, right? So Torah as this source of wisdom, this source of knowledge and life. The Eitz Chaim, a tree of life, and Eitz Hadat, a tree of knowledge, right? That we also have that within our bodies, and we can really tap into the knowledge of our bodies and use our bodies for learning and experience. So that's the overarching metaphor we've been playing with this week. Day 1, we tapped into our sense and skill of rootedness. Day 2, we're looking at sort of at the heartwood, which is kind of that inner core of sturdiness that really provides that inner strength for the tree, and exploring that in our bodies. Day 3 yesterday, flexibility and adaptability, the ability to cultivate, thrive, survive in lots of different contexts, to be flexible, adaptable, etc. And so today we are going to be focusing on power and flow. And sort of really trying to bring all of it all together. So we think about in terms of like, okay, what parts of the tree is that? We think about the sap and the nutrients, right, that are flowing up and down through the tree, in from the roots, through the trunk, out, and and the other way as well. Thinking about sunlight getting gathered by the leaves, moving through, turning into energy, right? All of that that is then flowing through the tree. And thinking about that is really cultivating and expressing this energy for power, for growth, for vitality, all of these things that we need just as much as our cousins, the trees. So we'll be doing that starting sort of in the external and then moving towards that as an internal practice to close. And I want to invite us to think about this, flow and power of, how do we express what we're trying to express? How do we push into the hard places? How do we reach into the sunlight? And then especially for that inner state, it is winter time. And how do we emulate sort of cultivating our inner state, kind of going dormant a little bit, right? And using this time to be more internal when, depending where we are, of course, but when there's less sunlight, it's colder out, right? Using that time of rest and sort of inner renewal during this winter time. So I see a question in the chat. What does Mitsui mean? Thanks for asking. Mitsui is a Hebrew Aramaic word. It means the activation of potential. And so perfect question. Like that is what we really try to do, is to identify, where is it? What's the intention that we have of where we're trying to go, or how we're trying to go, how we're trying to move, how we're trying to be, and then to activate our potential to then kind of go along that pathway and do what we're trying to do. All right, so with that, yeah, let's start. As I've said before, I'm going to be showing both from sitting and standing positions, and I'll kind of go back and forth between those as we do the practice, and invite folks to do whichever feels right in the moment. You can always switch back and forth yourself as well between sitting and standing positions, whatever is working best for you as you explore being in your body. So the first thing we're going to do, let me switch my camera over. Okay. Change my screen as well, just so I can see myself a little bit better. Okay. All right. I've been playing with this camera too. I figured out how to like have it track me, which is kind of fun. Okay. So we're going to start off. Again, we're working with power and flow. And so for some of you, this might make perfect sense. For others, it might seem slightly paradoxical. But the first thing that we actually want to cultivate is a sense of emptiness. And the reason for that is we want to actually open up channels for things to flow through us. For those familiar with the Kabbalistic idea of tzimtzum or contraction, I invite you to think about that as sort of a way to bring tzimtzum into the body. And that's in a nutshell, tzimtzum is this idea that before God created the world as we know it, God was everything everywhere. And so God needed to do this act of tzimtzum, of contraction, to create some empty space inside of God's self for then the emanation to flow into, right? And for all of creation as we know it to unfold so that that particularity would happen. So we can also play with that. It seems to inside our own divine selves, our own divine bodies as well. So let me start off sitting. So here's what I'm gonna do is to try to find a sense of emptiness. And so we'll start off, kind of just play with the arms here. So I'm gonna open up like this. I'm just gonna pick up my arm and then I'm gonna try to let it go empty so that it just drops down. Obviously, to pick up the arm, I have to use some muscles and bones, but then I'm trying to just let it fall as just naturally as I can, right? And so then the rest of me is all staying stable so that I can create this structure to like let this kind of find this emptiness in the arms. And if you're standing, same thing. Okay. So from here, we're now going to start. So that's a little bit of a sense of emptiness. Okay. So now we're going to bring a little bit of bring in some of that connection from the rest of the body in. So now I'm going to just try to use a little bit of hips, feet to provide a little bit of momentum. So instead of, this is like just using my arm to pull it up and let it drop. This is creating some momentum that's actually swinging my arm up, right? So here I'm allowing my arm to be empty and be swung by the rest of the body up. When sitting, same thing. It's in the hips, maybe a little bit more in the shoulders. All right. And so as we do this, keep on doing this. And now we want to try to tap into the roots, right? So the more that I am really rooting through my feet into the ground, the more I can kind of bring that energy from the ground all the way up. And I'm trying to almost sense that it's almost like a current. I'm tapping into that current, it's coming up through the body and then it's going out through my fingertips, like so. Don't worry right now about exactly where the arm is going. Just let it come up and out. And again, we're trying to feel this sense of emptiness, most particularly through the arms, but also kind of, we have to let the emptiness, let the channels open up all the way through the body so that that energy can move all the way up and through. Good. Okay. Shake it out. All right. So that's a little bit of emptiness. Next is tapping into some of our power. And so obviously we're working here with the sort of physical layer of expressing power. As with really everything we've been talking about before, there's multiple layers, right? So we're practicing the physical layer, but also to remind ourselves and to practice, what does it feel like to express that power so that I have that more available to me in other contexts where it may not be so physical, right? But I'm still kind of tapping into that inner sense. So here we're going to imagine that we're going to do a push, and this just to recognize where this is coming from, really from Tai Chi, Chinese martial arts, some different sort of pushing practices. So let's start off with just like so. And again, I'm trying to stay rooted, have that sense of sturdiness, but also openness. And then finding a little bit of that emptiness. And I'm just letting it flow through the feet all the way up and out. And adding just a little bit more of a push as opposed to just the like flat. Okay, so play with that. And then now let's add one more layer, which is I'm going to put my hand, let me see if this will work to come closer. Yeah, all right. So I'm going to put my hand right here on my wrist. I'm just going to give myself not even resistance, but something that I'm pushing against. So slow motion, it kind of looks like this, and then full speed like that. I'm just going to go back and forth. Again, I'm not trying to like actively resist myself. I'm just giving myself a little something tangible that I can feel to push against. And so as this kind of, you're feeling it here, sitting, same thing. Obviously, everyone's going to be doing this in a different way. So we're not necessarily trying to push an elephant, just giving a push. Think about this as like pushing through a closed door, pushing through boundaries, pushing yourself, whatever it is. And as we're doing this, try to keep on doing this. And again, feel that sense of rootedness in the feet, in your sit bones if you're sitting, right? That is moving. So this is just like here, all I'm doing is moving my arms. Let me zoom out so you can see more. Right, so this is just moving in my arms. I don't have zero power, but it's not that much. Whereas here, I'm feeling that through the feet, really channeling all the way up through the body in that push. So that's what we're trying to practice here. And if it's all kind of feeling like it's coming together, you can add some of that breath in to have that exhale right here on the push. That can also help to channel all of that energy moving through. Keep doing this for a couple more moments. Again, trying to open up the channels for that energy to flow from the roots. Got like just enough sturdiness to kind of give us the structure to hold things, but also letting it flow through. And here. Okay. So we've got emptiness opening up the channels. Then we've got that expression of power pushing through. So as we've done before, I'm gonna put on some music for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And this is gonna be our final pre-movement improv session for this little series. And then we're gonna close with a breathing practice. And so as we do this, now we're bringing it all together. So this is open movement, move however you feel compelled, exploring, okay, how do I have that sense of rootedness, however I am moving, from sitting, right? How do I have that sense of sturdiness in different positions where I'm feeling like, okay, my body is feeling sturdy in this position, I'm holding myself, how do I play with that? How do I find that sense of softness where things are flowing through, and then finding moments to express some of that external power in different ways. Yeah? Okay, so let me put on some music and share my audio. All right, and here we go. And just free exploration. Tapping into everything we've been playing with this week, just exploring it. Staying rooted, finding sturdiness, as well as softness. And moments to express the power. Good, have a little fun here. Going for about 20 or 30 more seconds. And begin to move yourself towards a satisfying conclusion. Okay. And I'll invite folks to come to a position where you can spend a few minutes in stillness. So whether that's sitting or standing, whatever feels like will be comfortable and allow you to sort of most tap into that tree-like quality. We're going to close with a breathing practice that we call soil to sky breathing. That's really going to tap into that tree-like quality. So as you come into that position, eyes can be closed or eyes can be open. Either way, trying to let the gaze soften the muscles around the eyes, relax. If they're open, just let them kind of go into soft focus or find something to let the gaze softly rest on. Starting off with finding a comfortable breathing pattern of your inhale and exhale. And we're going to now, again, imagine our bodies as trees. And through the breath becomes the movement of water, of nutrients, of air, of sunlight. The breath is the way that things move into and out of the body as trees. So we'll begin by imagining on the next inhale that inhale is pulling through the roots, pulling the water and other nutrients from the soil as you inhale, and you're pulling those in through the roots into the body, into the trunk of the tree. That's moving all the way through. And then on the exhale, it's going to go out through the branches to the leaves and get released out into the sky. And then on the next cycle, we switch directions, inhaling through the branches, that sunlight, the air, carbon dioxide, it's coming in, it's moving through, and then it's getting released down into the soil. So inhaling through the soil, letting it move through, exhale through the leaves, and then inhaling through the leaves, letting that move through, and exhale through the soil. And continuing on with this pattern of inhale and exhale, of bringing it in and letting things go. As we connect with the earth, in Hebrew it's Adamah, associated with the mother letter Mem, which makes that sound. And the skies or the heavens are called Hashamayim. That's the mother letter Shin, which makes the sh sound. And so noticing as we are absorbing what we need from the soil and from the sky, what is it? What are we bringing in from each of these sources of life and wisdom and resource? What are we letting move through us? What are we releasing into the sky or releasing into the soil? What is it that my body and soul needs right now? Where do I want to root more deeply or get nourished by the soil? Where do I want to stretch in that way? Where do I want to stretch out into the sky, that open sky, and sunlight and air and clouds? What do I want to let go of and what do I want to hold on to? What's becoming part of my heartwood? What's becoming part of those inner layers, the cambium, the sapwood? What's becoming part of the bark, that protective layer? It's giving me some protection from the elements, not too hard, but not too thin. And in this winter time, as I cultivate my inner energy, it's not quite time to be budding out, but that time is on its way. Where are those areas where I want to have some new growth? Where are the areas that I've already got really good branches and good leaves and those are getting ready to come back out? And again, from the soil and from the sky, bringing in those nutrients that will help to resource us for everything that lies ahead. Do another maybe 2 or 3 cycles, letting things flow from the soil to the sky and the sky to the soil. And as you're ready, slowly coming back from your tree form into your human form. Your eyes are closed, slowly letting them open. If they've been open, let them slowly return into focus. Take one more nice big inhale and exhale. Give a little bit of warmth to yourself, to your body, to your soul for trying out this practice. And I want to say thank you so much to everyone for trying out this practice, whether you did, today was your first day, you've been with us for other parts of the week, for trying this on, doing something maybe a little bit different. And we'll share the links, sorry, in the chat. But yeah, again, I just really want to invite folks, if you enjoyed or are interested in continuing with some embodied Jewish practice, to check out our free intro course, which will be an hour long next Thursday. There'll be a lot of things that will definitely have similarities to what we've been doing this week. And we'll also be going into some other areas of some different forms and frameworks that we use through Mitsui method to guide us in our practice to cultivate our potential and to activate our potential for our ways of being in the world that serve ourselves and our communities and the world around us in the ways that we are trying to do and to build. So with that, I will turn it back over to Sam, and obviously looking forward to staying on for those who are joining for the Q&A. Thanks so much, y'all.
Hey everybody, this is Harry with EdgeS. I'm not sure where Sam is. I'm trying to track him down, but in the meantime, we could do the mourner's cottage to seal the practice. So I'm going to share that on my screen, and anyone can unmute and put things in the chat as usual. Okay, give me one second. Feel free to unmute at this time.
And if I can jump in. If your tradition is to stand, then please do so in body or in spirit. And we'll say Mourner's Cottage together. Yitkadal,
Davi,
Dash me Rabba
Yama,
Yama Divache,
Yeh Dai Khan Yom
Agala, Augustin,
Beru Amen. Yesh me Olam Barakim
Shaman,
Vietadar, Vietale,
Elamin Kobe,
Elamin Kober,
Yesh Amarabba
Chaim Aleinu V'Yisrael.
Say Shalom Ramav, we say Shalom, Leinu V'Yalkol Yisrael,
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
So it looks like, yeah, we may have lost Sam. So I'll just stay on and answer some questions. And to those who have to hop off, thank you so much. So all right. Yes, so please put some questions in the chat, label them all caps questions so we can see them and they stand out. And yes, I see the question from Susan. I'll try to grab that and put that in a moment. The Hebrew letters for Mitsui. Let's see, Jacqueline, I see your hand. We'll bring you on in just a moment. See from Jude, I often do an exercise practice before entering into the I just meditation sit. CBT is an alternative. Yeah, I think absolutely. I think for me, meditation or stillness practice, I find to often be the most effective when I have sort of really paired that with a more active movement practice, sort of really feeling that distinction between here's when I'm really in movement and then here's where I'm going into stillness. For me personally, sometimes it's a little hard to go straight into stillness from sort of like the kind of in between of like I'm moving a little bit before, but so to really, and I think that part of what to me that is embodying is that Shabbat cycle, where we have 6 days of active work and creation and being in the world, and then the seventh day is the day of rest, right? That we can sort of really push into that active, creative energy through our movement and embodiment work, and then have the stillness, whether that's for breathing or meditation or whatever it may be. So Jacqueline, do you have a question? You want to come on?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I have some connectivity issues, so I can't turn for the bandwidth reasons, I can't turn my video on. But I want to preface this by saying thank you for today. My father was actually in the hospital this week, so I missed all of Monday through Thursday. So if what I'm asking you covered in the other days, feel free to be like, just watch the videos. But I have like a comment and a question. So the comment is, when I was letting my hands do that initial, like, kind of free movement, one of the things I immediately felt was the weight of them and presence on my legs, because I was letting them be like dead weight. So I
Right.
thought that interesting, because it wasn't really dead weight. I mean, it was, but it then affected my quadriceps. I have hypermobile joints, so I know a lot about like joint health. I've been doing PT on and off for like most of my life. So I found it interesting that like a free movement or dead wasn't really dead. It had to go somewhere. That was
Right.
kind of my comment. So my question is, I noticed when you were doing the standing part, for instance, like you moved your pelvis a little bit to try to, I believe, when you were doing the like the opposition and stuff, have like, let's say, keep your body in alignment, like shoulders, hips, knees, like just naturally, I think you were doing that. And I was doing that as well. And I just wanted to verify that it's it is okay slash correct to try to stay in like body alignment, which means you're not really just moving the arm or just, because everything is connected,
Right.
like joint wise, like, just
Right.
doing like hips, shoulder, knee, like not even any other joint. Does that make sense? Like, were you doing that intentionally? And
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, great. So the question totally makes sense. And I think, right, it's like when we let the arms drop, it'll hit. I mean, if it's above the leg, it'll hit the leg, right? And so the idea of that was just to, the arms are a relatively easy part of the body to kind of let be empty, right? And kind of like isolate from the rest of the body. But yeah, absolutely. In order to do that, I kind of have to hold everything else stable so that I can let that happen. And so, yeah, if I'm aligning my pelvis and everything, it's to create that. And so, yeah, I think in terms of, so please do, if when you have a chance, watch from earlier in the week. But definitely, especially like the rootedness helps us to sort of create that foundation, and then finding the right sturdiness in the body allows for us to then move the things that we want to really move and sort of keep light. And so, especially for hypermobility, right. So folks, you've got obviously folks in lots of different places. For folks who have like very low mobility, very stiff, inflexible, etc., we're trying to open things up in different ways. Hypermobility, you actually almost have to create more stability, more stableness, because otherwise there's not enough holding the joints, and they'll get into weird, like kind of too far into different ranges of motion. And so that's where it's really building that strength, building that stability, the structure, which in Hebrew is keva, the structure to really hold things in place, and move the body in the ways that we want to. And then especially when we're kind of channeling the energy, absolutely, it's flowing through all sorts of different parts of the body. Sam, welcome back. We've just been carrying on.
Wonderful. My internet connection cut out, and I'm happy to be back now. And
Yeah.
Yoshi, I don't know if you had a chance to address it yet, but Mark's question about reading the 13 Petal Rose by Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, and how he's struck by how embodied practice connects with Kabbalah and the Sirot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is when you see similar
Yeah,
connections.
for
They're really
sure. Yeah. So I'm just seeing some of the other. There's some others. Okay, great. So yes, absolutely. I think There's definitely a lot of folks doing Jewish embodiment work who especially with the Sfirot, really are connecting in different ways. And we definitely do some of that. There's all sorts of Kabbalistic elements that we're connecting to. Actually, I knew there was a question in here about why do we connect with the earth and then the sky? So that is connecting there in Kabbalah, and this is really coming from Sefer Yetzirah, which is the Book of Formation, which is actually it's actually a pre-Kabbalistic Jewish mystical text. And so Sefer Yetzirah is sort of gives us this guide to kind of the metaphysical architecture of the cosmos, which is hopefully a phrase that makes sense. And so it uses the metaphor of the Hebrew alphabet as sort of these like building blocks of creation. And so the alphabet is categorized in different ways, and there are three mother letters: the Aleph, the Shin, and the Mem. So the Shin is connected with Hashamayim, the heavens, or the skies. The Mem is connected with Adamah, the earth, and then the sounds sh and and then Aleph is kind of that center, and Aleph is actually, it's a silent letter, which means it is really kind of cultivating potential to go in infinite directions. You don't know what sound it's going to make until it's in the word. And so that's where it's you're kind of cultivating that Aleph potential to then go in whichever direction it's going in. And so that sort of like conduit of our bodies to like the divine Hashemayim heavens, like heavenly realm, and then the earthly material Adamah realm is one of the ways that we're sort of connecting with that. And oh, right. So Sphira, I was like, wait, that we didn't start with that question. So so we play with that a lot in our practice and our methodologies. The Sphirot, there are folks who, and there are ways where the Sphirot are actually mapped out on different points of the body. And I think there can be some really interesting kind of like exploration that can happen there. We don't do a ton of that with our practice, mainly because I just find it actually like a little bit hard to work with in like an ongoing way, where it's like, okay, am I just focusing on the sphera? I forget which one, but that's like connected to my left shoulder. Like, okay, but then what do I do with that in like a movement practice? So I prefer to think about sphero as sort of like a little bit broader. So for example, we've done a lot of, counting the Omer embodied work where we're thinking about, okay, what's the sphera of the day and the week as different qualities that we're exploring, but we can kind of work inside of that space with the whole body in different ways. So those are some of the ways that we play with Sphero in our practice, but of course there's lots of different ones. I think I'm seeing Nancy's question. I agree, this feels important. Yeah, so there was a question. Yeah, someone brought up trauma yesterday. We didn't have time to really get into it, but I agree it's important to address. I'm trying to just remember the context. We were talking about the ways in which oppressive systems can shape and form us in constricting ways, in terms of like our embodiment of like, here's who we are, here's who we've been allowed to be, and how does that shape kind of, our embodied form, both like literally physically, but also spiritually and emotionally in all these different ways. And so yeah, so trauma is absolutely a big part of that, whether that being specific instances of trauma that folks experience, right? From the physical to the psychological to all these different things where, you've got a specific incident of trauma, like a traumatic incident. And yeah, if that gets those experiences manifest in the body, and then our bodies have natural response mechanisms that are actually meant to keep us safe or to move us from the danger of the traumatic situation to get us through that and to survive that. But then we get, PTSD, all of these things when that trauma, when the process isn't allowed to fully move through the body and it gets kind of stuck. And that's where we get sort of the, post-traumatic stress disorder, ongoing traumatic, et cetera. The body is stuck in this sort of response pattern, and it actually becomes kind of disoriented to time and space, which is, I think, one of the ways in which Jewish wisdom brings so much resourcing, because so much of our work is about orienting to where are we in the world, the physical world, and when are we in the calendar, and actually to reorient and recalibrate that really helps us, and especially when we bring that into the body, really helps us to kind of move through that cycle and do the trauma healing. So you've got specific incidents of trauma, and then you've got kind of like ongoing persistent traumas, maybe because of a situation you're in, because of identities, different things where you're just constantly being exposed to like kind of small traumas, but that builds up over, your lifetime. But that still has, gets stuck in our bodies in similar ways and becomes part of our response patterns. And then we have intergenerational trauma, where trauma experienced by prior generations, which actually encodes itself into our genetic expression and gets passed down both genetically, kind of biologically, and also in cultural ways, gets passed on from one generation to the next. So yeah, all important things to be holding on to, and also things that embodied practice can really help to recalibrate our bodies. And it's not the only, resource, but can be really part of that healing that we can go through.
Thanks, Yoshi. That's really beautiful and helpful. And I'll just say, that one of the things I think we've experienced collectively as a people in response to the trauma we've experienced is that we kind of became disembodied heads, because it's easier to be up in your head than to feel all of those difficult traumatic feelings in the body.
Which is one of those protective responses, right? I mean, when you're going through the trauma, it's actually really helpful to like separate, and not feel the really difficult things that are happening. And that if, yeah, exactly. We need to like let that move through so we can heal and reconnect. Yeah.
Exactly. And I really just wanted to thank you for being, an important voice and modeling for us how we can come back home to our bodies, and in that work, find ourselves, moving toward greater wholeness and healing. And just want to thank you for all the beautiful work you did in guiding us today and throughout this week. And we'll be back again tomorrow, friends, at the same time. And please do come back to finish out the series with Yoshi. And in the meantime, stay well, be safe, and many blessings to all of you. Thanks.
Thank you. And I know we have to close. I'm just seeing some of these questions. So I'll say, please come to the intro. We'll cover some of that. Stay in touch. I want to respect everyone's time, but and acknowledge that there's some additional questions we didn't get to. But thanks so much, everybody.
Take good care, everyone.